So our bottom line, Andy, what are we looking at here as far as costs are concerned, and how can we get that taken care of?
Yeah, so we were kind of talking about this before the show started. I think the message that we send to the veterans is that if the loan is structured correctly and the real estate agent that you're working with is able to negotiate a fair deal for you that works for you and is working for the seller, you theoretically could come to the table with nothing more than a pen in your driver's license, meaning this could be a true 0% down loan. The costs that are associated with the VA loan are very similar to the costs that are associated with any other type of mortgage that you're going to do, whether it's an FHA loan or a conventional loan. The costs that are associated with you actually getting the mortgage, which if you look about a third of the way down the page there where it talks about appraisal and credit report and flood cert and all those good things, you can anticipate anywhere between 5 and 7%. Now that's not an absolute, because depending on the region that you live in and the average sale price of the home that you're buying, those percentages could be slightly higher or lower. The best advice is to talk to your real estate agent or talk to your lender and have them work up a cost sheet to show you what those fees actually come to. But again, when we're talking about a VA loan and the options that the veteran has, the seller can pay almost everything. And when I say almost everything, there's certain things that they wouldn't pay because they have to be considered customary and reasonable. But the reality is, as a veteran or as a veteran family, meaning at least one member on the loan is active duty military or retired, you could walk into your home and possibly get your deposit back that your agent used to secure the offer for you.
And that's where that 4%, the information at the bottom, can come into play. If there is a fee that doesn't fall into the category above, the usual, customary, reasonable, closing costs, that can fall into that other category at the bottom.
Yeah, and again, John is such a wealth of knowledge that I feel like I'm stealing his thunder here, but he had mentioned this to us when we did the seminar back in the spring, but he just reiterated it again, that some of that 4% can go to things as simple as buying a lawnmower to keep at the house so the veteran, has something to mow the grass with. Or if you've got debt that needs to be paid off to help the veteran qualify, that money can go, towards those costs as well. So it really is probably one of the most misunderstood loans that we have access to, but it's also one of the most helpful for people that chose to serve our country. So again, you can literally get into a house without having to have a dollar in your checkbook, as long as you qualify to be able to make the payments.
Right.
Absolutely. And I'd like to make one more comment on that, if I may, Andy. We talked about this a few minutes ago before we came on. Oftentimes you'll have seller assist and you won't use it all. So now you have to go back and redisclose the correct credit. So you're losing 24 to 48 hours of time. And if you're close to closing, with VA, you don't have to do that. If you have some seller assist left over, take it and apply it to one of their credit card bills, their car payment, apply it towards part of their funding fee, anything, just give it to them. And because that's what you've disclosed, now you don't have to go back and redisclose anything. You don't lose any time, and you've given the borrower all the credit that you've disclosed to them. So it, from a standpoint of time, it makes a lot of sense too.
When you say just give it to them, John, does it have to be given to them in a sense that it's documented through some kind of a paid receipt? Like they can't just walk away from the table.
It will be documented on the closing disclosure.
Right.
You cannot give him cash.
Okay.
But you can pay it towards a credit card or a car payment or any other debt that he has, or like you said, buy a lawnmower or a microwave or something that they don't have, a refrigerator.
A new appliance, right? Something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
As long as you don't exceed the 4% seller contributions. And you're fine with that. And it does save you time because you do not have to go back and redisclose.
So I wanted to add a note to this particular topic. And that was one of the reasons why in the slide, you know, I had put some other options in there just because of the current market. You know, I've done tons of VA loans over my 25 years living out here, you know, in Jonestown, close to the Gap. Love working with VA buyers. I love nothing more than to be able to negotiate, you know, all of those closing costs in, you know, the 4%, et cetera. But the current market, you know, kind of dictates a little bit of that. And so it's not always the easiest thing to do, just because it's possible. You know, we also have to look at the other side of the coin. And, you know, I think we need to keep in mind that right now, under the current market conditions, it can be extremely competitive out there. What we're seeing is, you know, it's very common for properties to go under contract in just a few days. You know, I've had things go under contract in hours. Sellers are choosing between contracts. And seller assistance is a direct reduction on the seller's net proceeds. And so therefore, it can affect your position when you're out there competing against other buyers who are not asking for seller assistance. So that's why, you know, I wanted to put in there as far as the options talking about, you know, if you're not able to get the closing cost assistance negotiated into the contract for these reasons, you know, there's always the option of the 401k that you can use for closing costs. Lender credit, you know, is an option as long as you qualify. Increasing the sales price, you know, as long as the property appraises. So just to throw that out there so that it doesn't catch anybody off guard. You know, I've, again, worked with a lot of VA buyers, and I love nothing more than to be able to, you know, get those closing costs paid for. But I also am party to, you know, the disappointment when it doesn't work out and when, you know, you're writing multiple agreements and losing because you're getting beat out in a competitive market like this. Which kind of brings me to another topic. I was going to save it for the end, but it kind of, now that we're talking about it, lends into this as far as a pre-approval is concerned. Typically, it's very quick and easy to get a pre-approval, but there are some very good reasons to get a pre-approval well in advance, and this can be one of them. I mean, as well as just checking your credit report to make sure that there are no errors, and if there are, you know, get them corrected ahead of time. You may be asked to address some collections or past due accounts. You know, we mentioned earlier that this additional 4% can be negotiated into the sale and used for these items. But it's very important that you understand that and you do these things before the contract is signed. You can't really get into a contract, go get pre-approved, you know, or get into the rest of the process and then find out, oh, wow, wait a minute, you know, we needed to negotiate, you know, a little bit more in here. It's not going to work. You know, the last thing that we want to do is find the perfect home and, you know, be, as I said, all the way, you know, into that and then find out that, you know, we have issues that we need to resolve. So it's best to get those resolved beforehand, know exactly what you're doing. And I always say that it's like having the confidence of being a cash buyer because you know exactly what you can and can't do. You know what you need to negotiate into the sale, you know, or what other options are available to you. So just the perspective from the other side of the coin there.
And Maria, can I give you one more option?
Sure, absolutely.
You have a borrower that doesn't have the money for the closing costs, and the seller's not going to give you any seller assist for closing costs. Just raise the rate a little bit. Have the lender pay the closing costs through lender credit.
Yeah.
Because of the built-in EARL. They'd have to hold that for about 7 months, and then they could automatically, as long as the rate stayed low, automatically reduce their rate back down. So what they did is they rented their closing costs for 7 months. And so that gives you another option if you have a seller that's not going to give you any seller credit, and it's not going to make, it's going to just be maybe a $20 or $30 a month difference at the most on their payment. And then at the end of 7 months, do an EARL, and they've paid all their closing costs off. So that's another option with the VA loan program that that can help somebody get into a house.
I love that idea. You mentioned that at the program that I attended where you spoke a couple months ago, and that definitely was one of those takeaway things, you know, that I wrote down and kept in there in the tool bag, because with the market being what it is, we are needing to utilize that lender credit now, you know, a little bit more
Right.
than ever. But I love that that's an option that, you know, yes, we're bumping up the interest rate, which right now interest rates are so low, you know,
It's
again,
not going to matter. Exactly.
yeah, you know, we're talking about minimal amounts here. So that's another advantage. But, you know, bottom line is, you know, you can get them refinanced, you know, within just a short period of time. So, yeah,
And
that's
it's an
a great
automatic.
option.
They don't even have to qualify for it. There's no income verified.
Right.
There's no appraisal done. All we have to do is verify that they've met the seasoning period and that the costs are low enough that they can, with their payment savings, they can recoup the cost within 36 months. And it's automatic. It's a great program.
Yeah, I think too. I was really happy to hear that that was an option.